I want to know what you think and how you define what is the boss voice and what is the bitch voice.
First off, I think everybody has them. I think sometimes we like to look at somebody that we've determined is successful in life and wish we had their drive, wish we had their dedication, their commitment, their discipline, without taking into factor they have to face the same exact voice that says quit, the same exact voice that says it's too difficult, it's hard. Everybody has that. I don't care if you're Jordan Burroughs, one of the greatest Olympic wrestlers of all times. He thinks about quitting at some point. We think about quitting at some point. So to me, that's the kind of two voices, right? The one that encourages you to keep going and has perspective that this suffering is going to create results you want, and the bitch voice that tells you, okay, the pain's not worth it, it's time to pack up and go get a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I like how you said we all think about quitting at some point, and that's exactly what the bitch voice is, right? That voice that tries to make everything easier, that pulls you away from reaching your true goals and desires. That voice that tells you to hit the snooze button, or that you can procrastinate and do it later, or that voice that makes up all the excuses of why you shouldn't do that awesome idea that you just came up with. It gives you all the reasons why you can't. And it'll hold you back. It'll hold you back from achieving your dreams. It'll hold you back from achieving your highest potential. But the thing about the bitch voice is it's like a serpent. It's very wise and cunning in the way that it truly makes you believe, don't even waste your time with that. It's a waste of time. You're probably not even going to enjoy doing this when you get there anyways. And sometimes if we allow that voice to be heard, it becomes stronger within us.
So let me follow up on that. Let me ask you this. So you don't think you should even hear it?
I don't think you have a choice.
You're going to hear it.
You're going to hear it.
You have to see it. So I think that's an important point for our community to understand is hearing it and acknowledging that voice is there is not bad in and of itself. Right? Actually, I love it. Let's take this example. You're on a run, and you normally do 8-minute miles. But for the last quarter mile, you decide, I'm going to pick it up. So an 8-minute mile, let's say, what's that, a little over 2 minutes a lap, or whatever, say you're on a track. You're like, I'm going to cut this last lap to a 6-minute mile pace. So now you're pushing hard. Well, during that last lap, you're going to think about quitting. Like, oh my God, this is so hard. Whew, so much harder than an 8-minute mile. So you're thinking about quitting, but you're persevering. Because until you start thinking about quitting, you're comfortable. Right? Like, think about it. If you just stayed on that 8-minute mile pace for the last lap, you'd have still had a workout, but you'd have been comfortable. You never thought quitting because you've done it multiple times. You know you can do it. I don't have to worry about it. I got this. But as soon as you change a variable, now you're like, oh my God, this is hard. I'm thinking about quitting. You just got better. So now the next time you run, maybe now it's the last half mile instead of a quarter, you do it that pace. And then because you're constantly pushing the quitting away, before you know it, you run the whole mile at that pace. But it would never have been there had you not started thinking about quitting, right? Because that means you pushed yourself to a new level. It's what I always say. Until you start thinking about quitting, you're already doing where you've already been. Mm-hmm. It's like kind of like GPS, right? You don't GPS places you've already been 1,000 times. You just drive. But as soon as you go someplace new, let me look it up on the map. Let me get some directions. It's the same thing for me in our lives, right? Until we start thinking about quitting, it means I'm here already. I'm comfortable. So I want to think about quitting. Like, honestly, a good day is when I think about quitting many times a day. That means I've challenged myself on many levels. So it's not a show of strength or bravado. It's like, I don't ever think about quitting. I would be like, well, then you never get out of comfort zone. So I don't want our community to think like thinking of quitting is bad. Thinking of quitting is great. What you do when you think about quitting defines success.
I agree. What other things do you think that the bitch voice talks to us about aside from making you think about quitting?
Flaws. things you've been told, you know, stuff you're not good at, things you've been told you'll never become, your insecurities. It's just like you said, I like that analogy. It's a sly serpent that kind of slides up, makes you think it's your friend, but it's actually telling you like you're too fat, your jeans are too tight, you're not handsome enough, you're not smart enough, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a quiet little fucker.
Right.
You know,
Almost like it's trying to protect you, like, don't embarrass yourself.
it's tricking you into thinking it's for
don't.
your best interest to not challenge yourself.
Right.
And then honestly, like there's a lot of our society that feeds that. Right? Like, don't make yourself uncomfortable. Like we talked about last week, you're a victim if this happens or that happens. And I'm like, no, that's adversity. That's where strength comes from.
Yeah.
So the interesting for me here is because I've done these talks before, especially with, like in our workshop, we talk about this. We all have these voices, but more important to me is whose voice do you hear when you're being told to quit, when you're being told you're not good enough? Like, have you ever thought about that? Like, whose voice do I actually hear? Do I hear my own voice? Do I hear my dad's voice? Do I hear that 8th grade PE teacher's voice? Do I hear the, whatever leader in my life created such doubt and insecurity that I'm not sure I can do it? Because that's the beautiful thing to me. Because when we hear voices, we hear it. It has tone, it has accent, it has feeling. So whose voice are you hearing? Because for me, I really think until you identify who is telling you this stuff, it's hard to start moving past it.
Yeah. And that was the first time I had heard about that specific exercise, which identifying who that voice is was with our first workshop.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see the group there share such different people in their life, whether it was a parent or a coach or a bully or any of these things. Yeah, that's a really interesting concept.
Because think about it, you're hearing it. So once we identify who's telling us this, now we can start making strategies to combat it. Because for most people, it's not themselves telling them this.
You think so?
I do. At least in my studies, I'm not like, I don't have an enormous case, but dealing with because I ran this drill with cops and school districts and athletes, it's almost always, over, I'd say probably 75%.
Someone else.
Parent. Dude, it's the parent role is fascinating to me, and how much parents love their kids, yet how many times they're the ones that are creating all this doubt. But it's just like you said, why would a parent create doubt in a kid? To protect them. Hey, don't worry about trying that, Johnny. We're not all going to be good at this stuff over here, right? And it's not because you don't want Johnny to go climb that cliff. You don't want Johnny to fall off the cliff and die. No, don't be climbing that, Johnny. It's way up, right? Well, what happened there? Now Johnny thinks he should never climb high cliffs. But his secret talent in life might have been climbing cliffs. And as I've gotten older and we spend more time together and we delve really into like self-improvement and purpose, I'm super critical of how I parented. And did I do things that are limiting my kids, or am I like, you want to climb cliffs? I'll stay down here and watch, but let's go climb that cliff.
Yeah.
And I don't want my voice to be the one that limits your potential.
So what do we do when we identify the voice and we realize that this voice is contributing to that overall bitch voice within us that's holding us back? What do you think the solution is?
Well, I mean, if you're asking, so say as a parent, I think you make some notes on when did this happen? When did this voice start coming into your head? It was a teenager, and every time I went to my dad with a great idea, I was told all the reasons why it can't happen and why it won't be successful and all the obstacles and obstacles and obstacles. Okay, well, if that happened, how old was I? Okay, you're 16. And then be real, right? 16-year-old Jared is not the same as 48-year-old Jared. So why do I let the voices that caused me doubt when I was 16 still cause me doubt at 48? right? So I think by creating a tangible list where I can say like, well, the voice I hear is Ali because, you know, he was my football coach in 11th grade. He told me I sucked and I'd never become anything and I was going to go to prison and blah, 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 blah. What's 30 years later? You want to take some of that power back? You want to take some of that voice away? Because we can choose it, right? We get to choose how loud these voices are. We get to choose how much weight somebody's opinion from 30 years ago has today.
Yeah.
Right? So I like to do that. I like to say, okay, when did this start and why are we hearing this? And then we follow that up with kind of the opposite of this, that boss voice, that king voice, that voice that says I am unbeatable, and start listening to things that voice says. And where did those ideas come from? Because it's usually going to be the opposite, right? Like I had one coach that created a lot of doubt and hesitation. I had another coach that believed unwaveringly. So why is his voice not worth more than the other voice? Why, when I get uncomfortable and I want to quit, why do I not pull back and go to the king voice? They're both there. One saying you're the man, all like your fight, bro. You could have quit so many times. Why didn't you quit? Because you had other voices like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. I'm winning. I'm alive. Ooh, this motherfucker just kicked me hard. That hurt. I better kick him back, right? But you could also be like, oh, that hurt. I should just stop and it'll all go away. So if we know we have these voices, we got to give more ammo to the king voice, to the boss voice. So to me, I like that exercise. I write them down. What voice creates my doubts? Who do I hear? That's important to me. Like, who do I hear? And then what voice builds me up? Who do I hear over here? Why do I hear that? And what I've found a lot of times is the voice over here that creates the doubt is external. It's somebody else in the world. And the one that makes you want to be a king is a lot of times internal.